In caterhamracer.com, Season 8 Championship is sponsored by Just Add Lightness, first for Caterham LED lights and in-car communication. Design and display structures, immerse yourself in worlds beyond with bespoke projection screens. And by DPR Motorsport, your competitive advantage. And by 1-to-1 on-track coaching and simulator training with Ryan Hooker. We're also supported by Darren Burt Performance Driver Coach and by FP Zero Simulators. So, getting towards the crunch point now of Season 8 of caterhamracer.com, and we're into the last few meetings of the season to try and determine who will be this season's champion. Scott Woodwis and Chris Hutchison back in the comment box for this one, and we find ourselves virtually, and almost quite literally, on the Welsh coast, because it is the next round of the championship on the most picturesque circuit, arguably at the very least in the UK, potentially in all of Europe. At least it's a strong candidate, and that is the wonderful Anglesey circuit, Track Mon, on the Isle of Anglesey in the north of Wales, right on the Irish coast. And what more could you ask for? Cheesy, of course, sun, sea, and some good old-fashioned sports cars, all in one combination. And it's also summer as well, all 4 S's. Can't get better than that, can it?
In a simulator world, we have the benefit as well of making sure that it's going to be nice and sunny and dry, which we are seeing here. Perfect conditions up on this, like you say, very, very pretty circuit. If you've never been to Anglesey, firstly, brace for yourself for a long drive, but secondly, it is absolutely stunning around this track. It's a brilliant little circuit as well, full of character. And tonight we're racing in our virtual 310Rs, and we will be out there for real in a couple of weekends' time racing around this circuit. So, yep, ready to start this round 5 and see where it's the meaty end of the championship, isn't it? It's where things really do start solidifying themselves in real world and in our simulator world.
Of course, it's getting pretty close towards the top of the championship. It has a quick kick into that first scores both, and in terms of drop scores, could be happy to drop a couple in order to result out of 10. And in terms of where we sit so far, the standings on the screen, and it is still a battle at the points between David Rowe and Christian Szaruta, the DPR Motorsport pair, who, as you can see on overall scores, are separated by just 8 points. When you put drop scores back into it, there's now a single point between them. 296 for David Rowe, 295 for Christian Szaruta. Some of that will have been helped by the rough second race that Szaruta had last time out when you joined us live at Donkin Park. And of course, going to the rest of the season, you can see Jamie Peters-Ellis keeping that strong, consistent run of also not just showing up to all the rounds, but scoring fairly well and keeping out of trouble throughout. Almost dropped off a tiny bit, as you can see with his results recently, but started off really strong at the beginning. And on drop scores, he currently is at the head of what's looking to be quite a frantic midfield battle between them in the mix. In fact, I think that actually Paul Donkin should be up there, because I'm seeing that Paul Donkin is on 277. So
We are ordered on the screen, Scott. We're on the normal full total rather than that drop total, which will come into play more of the at the end. But yeah, Donkin absolutely leads that mid-pack field. We're getting a little bit of cut out from your microphone, Scott. I'm sure it'll sort itself out as we go through this evening anyway. But yes, that midfield battle, it'll be one to watch. We haven't got some of those drivers here today, so Andrew Parker and Richard Gallagher are not on the stream tonight. But yeah, they'll be looking to try and get their podium spot, or at least figure highly in the top 10 by the end of this season.
And of course, it's been quite a back and forth between the two DPR multiple drives between Szaruta and Rowe. Of course, it's been very much punch and counter punch. And once been able to take a victory, the others try to stay close and at least take as many points as possible. Whereas and vice versa, when Szaruta struggled a bit, Rowe's been able to pounce, and when Rowe struggled, Zaruta's been able to pounce. So it's been quite crucial for these guys to try and bank as many points as they possibly can to keep themselves in contention. And the fact that it's coming to this stage and we're still only separated by a point on drop scores just shows, one, how close it really has been between those two, but also if you look at the gap they've got already on this on drop scores to Donkin and everyone else, in particular at least if you look at the gap they have to everyone at least on overall scores, just how much those two have been the class of the field compared to everyone that's been not chasing themselves in circles or chasing tails, but they've been pretty much so busy battling amongst themselves within that mid-pack that they've simply just allowed the top two to get away and have the gap that they have right now.
Between them, they have won every single race on offer this season, and David is currently the man on a roll. He has won the last 3 events that we have run. However, this Anglesey international circuit that we're running here, which is why we're going left here at the corner, we can see on scroll Paul Ferniehoff taking us around that bend out onto. He's not taking us out that bend. He's taking us into the barriers. But yeah, it's the international circuit we're running, and it is tricky in these cars. The rear end of this 310R does not like sitting down, and all these off camber and sort of, there is a lot of gradient around this Anglesey track, and it is hard to keep the rear end of that car in check. There's Paul Donkin on screen, that best of the rest, but Paul Ferniehoff sitting in 7th at the moment, so obviously pushing on to try and get that top 10 starting position, and we do see him dropping slightly lower down the order sometimes, or have done in that part of this season, so it's good to see him back up there in 7th. Christian Szaruta currently out front though with a 1:38.1, a very rapid time.
Yes, indeed. He's up by nearly 4.5 tenths over his DPR teammate and main championship rival. Good to see Richard Harwood up there in 3rd quickest. He's just over a second off the pace of the top 2. There he is on screen. And whilst we haven't seen him for a while, there are a few drivers here tonight, Chris, which are making their kind of main race debuts. Of course, we usually have so many cars that compete that we split them into A grid and a B grid, and for the first time we've got a handful of drivers that are making their A grid debuts tonight, or at least appearing the first time that we've seen them in quite a while. So Cheesy, you've got quite a few of them on the screen, obviously on the left hand side, so talk us through some of the new faces and new names that we've got on the grid for tonight's installment of Season 8 at caterhamracer.com, because there's quite a few. So
yeah, some of them are not brand new. They've been on the A grid or has been up there before, but they're certainly new, roughly new into our championship. So Richard Harwood has been with us for a fair bit this season, and last time out we saw him having some great results, so good to see him back on the A grid here. We've got Matt Shepherd back for the first time in a little while actually, so worth calling him out. He hasn't been able to do a full real world season this year, but also it was a bit short of the simulator time, so it's good to see him back here. And then we've got Mark Davenport. Let me pick him out so we can see what colour he's running today. He's got this blue sort of machinery. Mark Davenport, we haven't got any information about his history, so good to see him though up here on the server. Who else have we've got down on my list? Nick Platts, I don't think we've seen him on the A grid before, so welcome to Nick Platts. He's a Caterham Track Day driver in real life. He's not a racer, but he obviously is on our server in this nice orange Caterham that we've distributed to him tonight, and he's getting fully stuck in. Currently in that 16th position, a little bit off the pace, but I'm sure that'll come good as time goes on. And then we've got Stephen Henderson. Let me just check if we've got information. Yeah, so Scottish Motorsport. I think we mentioned him last time out. So he's got a Sylvia Wright kit car, sort of Caterham-esque car, and he races around Knockhill in Scotland. So I'm sure we'll be looking forward to the next round where we head up north and heading to that Scottish round around Knockhill. But yeah, good to see all those drivers out there. Anthony Hampton as well. He's a regular of our drivers, but don't always see him on the A grid, so good to see him up here and circulating in his black and white machinery in the number 50 there.
And all of them putting in some respectable lap times as the session goes on. Christian Szaruta still holding provisional poles. We get inside the last 3 minutes. David Rowe still second. Chris Skillicorn, whilst we've been talking, he's moved up to third fastest, so he's the third man to go inside a second. He's only the second driver apart from David Rowe to be within a second of current pole sitter Christian Szaruta. It looks quite spread out in terms of, it's quite obvious who the main two are going to be once again tonight, but if you look at how close it is, pretty much from third down to around about 11th or 12th place, Chris, and then even further back, I mean, there's the next, from 12th place downwards, the next roughly 6 or 7 cars are covered by just over a second there. So even though the top two might well be a little bit predictable, and whether or not Chris Skillicorn can keep with them in the initial part of the first these races coming up tonight, I think we can anticipate possibly, as we watch in there, as Haynes goes up to third fastest, so Max Haynes quickly getting straight into there and splitting both David Rowe and Chris Skillicorn, so he might be a surprise to get up there as well. But it looks like we're going to have two very strong midfield packs that are going to be quite tightly matched in terms of pace, quite tightly matched in terms of outright speed, and therefore could be putting us some good entertainment, whilst the top two, provided they do spread out a little bit, start to get away and make it a race of their own.
Yeah, same 4 people as well up there in pre-qualifying. In fact, sort of the top of that leaderboard are looking very similar to pre-qualifying. And yes, and they were split by, probably just over a second as well in pre-qualifying. So there is some serious pace out there. I think tonight we're going to see whether it's going to be consistency which gets you through, and actually not having a spin, because I have seen pretty much everyone in the practice periods, as we see Matt Shepherd just making way for Max as he makes his way through, but pretty much everyone's had a spin, so it's about whether we can keep that under control in 15 minutes, which doesn't sound like very long, does it? But it's a long time to concentrate for, as Max just hangs that rear end out as he heads on through this corner and out into the International. So that was the Siemens down the bottom of that hill up the Tom Price Straight, and then heading up to the imaginative named the Hairpin.
Yeah, not sure how long it took him to name that corner, but certainly must have laboured hours night and day after that one to try and get anything like that. But either way, jokes aside, it is quite an interesting challenge in its own right, Anglesey. It's got high-speed sections and quite fast corners with 1 or 2 tight technical sections, just to catch you out and just to throw a little bit of variety in here. This is not the original layout of Anglesey. The first layout of Anglesey, the first time this circuit ever opened or existed as a circuit, was way back in 1997. But then about 10 or 12 years later, they then decided to make some modifications to the layout. And if you even drive around some of the outer roads on this circuit, even towards the old the race office, you can even find parts of the old circuit which you drive along to in order to get up there. So parts of the old circuit still exist, but of course this circuit a bit longer, and it's supposed to fit with plenty more different types of championships and series that can run. I've heard a couple of people in the past suggest that maybe British touring cars should come here, but I think 1, the paddock's probably not big enough for them, all due respect to Anglesey, and 2 as well, it's quite a way for them to travel, and even though it might be quite a trek that quite many club racers can make, including the ones that will be racing next weekend with Caterham Motorsport, I'm not quite sure maybe Jason Plato and co will want to travel that far. Then again, they will go to Knock Hill, so I guess if there was some investment made, then never say never. But in its own right, no BTCC etc. aside, it is a circuit that has defined its own character and is certainly one of those, I think, slightly underrated gems in British motorsport that, unless you go there, some people might not even know exist.
It's another track you to go on a proper journey, and as you go up around the sort of beginning part of the lap, heading up the back straight, I think we'll call it a straight even though it's not. Church Bend is a bit like Thruxton's namesake. It's a very fast committed circuit going up onto the straight, and up into Rocket you are absolutely flat out into a very, very tight left-hander bend, so it can get pretty exciting up there, especially in the racing. Time is out on the clock, and we saw Max Haynes. We were following on board as he moved himself up into second place. David Rowe therefore dropping down to third, and Max putting in a great lap there to be just 2/10 off of that Szaruta lap, which is a class of the field there, but another 2/10 then back to David Rowe. Paul Donkin sits in the fourth, so really is sort of settling down as we might expect. Max Shepherd best of the rest there with ahead of Paul Ferneyhoff, so we're going to have some good battles, I think, as long as they can keep it on the circuit and pointing forward.
Ferneyhoff crosses the line, doesn't improve his time, but he stays 7th, so still a top 10 spot for Paul, who started off with quite one of the strongest drivers that we had when we initially started in season 1 of caterhamracer.com, but has kept himself in and around the midfield and around that sort of front end pack ever since. So qualifying complete then here at Anglesey tonight, and it's one of the usual suspects on pole position, Christian Szaruta starting at the top. He's only quickest by a quarter of a second, because that gap between himself and David Rowe has been split by Max Haynes with his late last effort to put himself on the front row of the grid. David Rowe will start geographically right behind Christian Szaruta on the second row in third, alongside Paul Donkin on the second row. Then it's Chris Gillicorn and Richard Harwood, followed by Paul Fernhoff, who we saw finishing his last lap and staying 7th. And that puts him on the 4th row alongside Matt Shepherd, who of course races occasionally for real, as do a couple of drivers in this field. Blaine Cresswell and Mark Davenport then round out the top 10. Mark Davenport sporting an Icelandic flag I can spot there, so whether that's just for fun or whether he literally does come from Iceland, we'll wait and see. 11th place downwards, then onto the 6th row of the grid.
Oh, sorry, Scott.
And Tom McEwing is on the 6th row alongside Jamie Peters-Ellis. He might hope for a little bit more, but we know that Jamie's a very good race driver in terms of his pace. Sometimes lacks a bit over the single lap in qualifying, but does know how to get his elbows out, keep his nose relatively clean, and pick his way through, particularly after a good start. Then Matt Larby and Alan Curtis come next. Quite a few of our new drivers towards the back. Craig Murphy seems to be one of the best of them, along with Stephen Henderson from Scotland. And then Nick Platts and Anthony Hambleton round out the 18-car grid of Caterham 310Rs. As usual, 2 15-minute races. Of course, the grid for race 1 is set by the qualifying results. Grid for race 2 set by the results of race number 1. So with the countdown beginning then, less than 2 minutes until the first of 2 races gets underway tonight. This is going to be an opportunity here, particularly for Szaruta, if he can get a clean start. What he'll be hoping for is that Max Haynes does become a nuisance, particularly to David Rowe. What will backfire for Christian, of course, is if Max becomes a nuisance for him, because it might well benefit David Rowe. Christian finds himself caught up with drivers that he doesn't want to get caught up with. Nonetheless, he doesn't want to get caught up with David Rowe, of course. And if David starts to force the issue, there's every chance he might make a mistake. So is it fair to say in some cases that depending on how good a start he gets, Max Haynes could be the catalyst here as to whether or not he disrupts one or the other or both of the front-running championship contenders if he's able to get himself amongst their early doors?
Yeah, definitely. He's got sort of less to worry about. But then again, we've seen some fantastic battles between the front of the grid, even when there have been points on the line. So Max Haynes actually top pre-qualifying, so he's definitely got a chance to, if he can get out in front, maybe he can draw that consistency. But I think we just saw Szaruta sort of finding those last couple of tenths, which if he gets out in front, they're all going to have to be cautious of it. He will definitely, David Rowe will definitely be cautious of that. We've seen him willing though to shove his nose up the inside and get push Sib's car forward, and behind. Skillicorn's always a strong racer as well, isn't he? So he's going to be also I'm sure involved at least at the start there. And as we go back through the grid, there's still people further back who are more renowned for their consistency and lack of errors, and I think some of those will start showing towards the end of this race.
Yeah, there might be one or two drivers, as we said, who might not have been the best over a single lap, but they might pick their way through, and let's see who it might benefit. So Szaruta on the front row on pole, Max Haynes, who could be the one to watch on the front row alongside in the blue Caterham, and watch for David Rowe from the inside of row number 2. Red lights are up for race number 1 at Anglesey for caterhamracer.com season 8, and they are all underway. It's a nice clean start from everyone so far. They head down towards the turn 1 for the first time. It's Szaruta who does have the whole shot, and immediately wasting no time, David Rowe is straight into second place. He knows he has to try and get himself right onto the back of Szaruta and start applying the pressure as they turn their way through in towards the hairpin for the first time, and now towards Church Corner. So Szaruta leads then. Rowe is down to a clear second place. He's leaving Haynes and Donkin to scrap over third place as they go through Church for the first time, right by the Irish Sea on the left-hand side. Now the short straight through School Curve and towards the Rocket Complex. This could be pretty tricky, particularly if you get your braking zone wrong. We're going to be 3 of them all for third place up towards the top of the hill. Top 2 trying to break away early as we see Max Haynes slotting it behind Paul Donkin. Donkin's got the move done into third now. We've now got just behind Chris Skillicorn, followed by Richard Harwood and Paul Fernhoff, and spoke too soon. Round goes Max Haynes. He looks like he did it all by himself. He's have to wait patiently and wait for everyone to get past, because that's a disaster for the promising Haynes earlier on. What could have been a challenge for the front, he's down to last and 18th with it all to do on the opening lap. Yeah, with that lock cranked over in that hairpin, or the round out of the Rocket there, he just got on the power a little bit too heavily, and this car just swapped the ends. It's not going to be the last car we see it, but because he did it in the opening lap, unfortunately, like you said, he had to wait patiently while the whole field went through. That must be extremely frustrating for him after a good set of pre-testing. Right, we'll have a little bit of a gap now to try and make up. He had 2.5 seconds to the cars in front. It was just entering the hairpin right at the top of the shot as it was going through. But we're looking at Paul Donkin in third place in the bright green Caterham as he turns his way through in third place. Up to the end of lap 1, and it's Szaruta who leads. And David Rowe already some 8/10 per second behind, with Donkin in third and Skillicorn in fourth. Then the next group headed by Paul Fernhoff in fifth, Richard Harwood sixth. Then it's Blaine Cresswell 7th, Davenport 8th, McEwing and Peter Dennis rounding up the top 10. Fernhoff completely misses the braking zone, gets all onto the grass, round he goes, and I'm afraid that was simply just him. I think it looked like he was more not simply just trying to defend from, it looks like possibly a Harwood behind him, got a little bit too eager on the brakes, possibly driving in his mirrors a little bit too much. By the time you look back, Chris, he hit the brakes, it was simply too late. He was off into the grass and round it went.
I completely agree. That's exactly what I saw happening as well. He was close with Harwood, wasn't he? And Harwood's one of those drivers here. We've got him on the screen who very, very consistent and strong a driver. So he was putting the pressure on Paul. Paul made some good progress early doors there. He was moved up a few places, but unfortunately, like I say, got on the brakes too late. And by the time he was slowing it down, he was on the grass and couldn't stop it from spinning. So he will have to fight his way back through. He is now down in plumb last, and he will have to fight his way up. Remember, the way you finish in this first race, you will start your second race. So a long evening's racing ahead for him.
Long race, nice racing ready for few people at the moment, even so possibly for David Rowe, because he's 1.1 seconds still behind Christian Szaruta. He's not allowing him to get away too quickly, but Szaruta does have that small advantage, and Rowe is just trying to close that gap a little bit more now. He's brought it within 1.1 seconds now, but I have a feeling that the harder he tries to push, the more he might start to lose a bit more time. As for the drivers on the recovery trail, we haven't yet had Max. Yes, we have had Max Haynes come through. 15th place for him. Szaruta sets first proper flying lap, fastest lap of the race, 1:38.6. That gets his gap out to 1.2 seconds. So he gained another couple of tenths just in those last couple of corners of the lap alone. He gains another tenth by the time he comes out of the banking and onto the short straight towards Church Corner. So now we see Matt Larby here in the top 10. He's battling with Craig Murphy, one of our newcomers to the A-grid this evening. Craig having a decent start. Again, one of those drivers that has kept his nose out of trouble, made up a couple of spots and now just settling into a good rhythm. And these two are behind Jamie Peters-Ennis, who of course sat in ninth. Like there he is, just tailing Tom McEwing, who's racing in this year's Caterham Academy. He's been using plenty of the caterhamracer.com actually to get involved, and Jamie Peters-Ennis with a great move up the inside, hits the brakes and goes just about straight on. But incredibly, he has enough pace. I was about to say if he had enough pace and enough grip on the outside line, he might well have got the switchback completed. But again, just like it was for Fernahub, wasn't looking in his mirrors this time, Chris. He's simply just probably watching Tom McEwen too much. By the time he looked back, hit the brakes way too hard, way too late, skidding offline, and before you know it, it's back to square one.
Yeah, around the outside, just as you're heading up there into Rocket, he obviously decided, he made his decision that he was going to go for the overtake, and he cried there, his tyres cried foul as he tried to press that brake. It's a sort of weird uphill corner as you're sort of heading up towards what feels like the sky as you go up there, and it could be pretty nerve-wracking in real life, and I'm sure he was a bit nervous there. He rocketed over the curbs, and that was just enough to send the rear of his car bouncing. There's a little bit of a nasty curb on the outside there on the sim. Tom McEwen currently ahead of Matt Larby. Him and Matt Larby are sort of the two drivers that are at the top of the championship in the academy for the Real World Academy this year. So Tom McEwen currently leading that battle. I'm sure that Matt Larby will want to put that right. Also in the background, I've been speaking to Duncan Mallett, another academy racer who is interested in coming on board and racing on our series. So hopefully we'll see him out there in a few races time maybe.
Just noticed Alan Curtis is having a bit of a rough night so far, down to 18th. This thing's had one or two issues and has slipped down to the back there. He is in pit lane, so unfortunately more problems for Alan. It's not been the smoothest of seasons for Alan, but it's not getting any smoother at this point. Here's Max Haynes, who's on the recovery trail after his spin up at Rocket on lap 1. He's up to 13th, now on the back of Matt Shepherd in his distinctive yellow car with the black striping. He's also chasing after Craig Murphy and Matt Larby, and it's very close. That was precision driving at its finest from Max Haynes, slotting up the inside of Matt Shepherd and only just getting in behind Craig Murphy. And he was lucky there, Chris, not to tag him and make more of an accident than it actually turned out not to be, if that line makes any sense. I
think we'll put that down to being a perfect move. I think it really was very, very well judged there, actually. And you saw just a puff of smoke as he was right on the limit of what his car would give him. But he managed to do it very well, and looks like he is now setting up for the next one. So Murphy ahead of him. He looks like he's lined up nicely as they come into the hairpin. It's not the heaviest break into this hairpin. It's quite a wide open one, but he still manages to dive to the inside there, and he gets back on the power nicely. So he's that's 2 moves into a few corners. So great progress up, and Matt Larby's next up on his list.
Yeah, Murphy trying to get back at him, just weaving around to try to distract the Max Haynes car now that he's got through. But you're absolutely right, he's straight onto the back of Matt Larby, and this for Max Haynes will simply be damage limitation. After that spin, what he'll be looking for is a strong enough finishing position to give him as high a possible grid slot as he can for race number 2, because remember, the grid spot that you get for race 2 is determined by where you finish in race 1, as it is with most sort of races, both at club and in national level within motor racing. As they now head out of the banking, now towards the right hand of his church. It's not quite as high speed as the one you find at Thruxton, but it's still just as daring. And the exit is all crucial to get you onto the school straight and through school curve, take you all the way up towards the top of the braking zone at the Rocket Complex. And he's done this before. Where's he going to go this time? Outside line this time. Is he going to be brave enough later on the brakes? He looks around the outside line. You can't normally make that happen. He forces Larby to tuck in quite close, but Larby takes a better line to the first part of Rocket. Then again, Haynes stays firm on the inside line, hugs the inside curb, gets the power down better. And that, whilst I thought initially that Larby might have had enough to come back at him, is another cool and calm textbook move from Max Haynes up into the top 10. Next target, Joey Peters-Ellis in P9.
Yeah, I think we'll see that move in real life as well. It is possible to do that. If you've got enough pace around the outside, you can then have the inside for the next tight bend, and if you're positioned well, you can make that stick. So great examples of all the different passing opportunities that you have around this Anglesey circuit. And yes, the exit of Church there is as a driver, so you were mentioning it, and I mentioned it earlier. It's one of those ones where you want to get on the throttle as soon as you can around that bend, and then it's just about your nerves and can you keep your foot fully planted for long enough. It's very nearly flat out, but it's not quite, so it's quite a nerve-wracking corner in that respect, just a bit like Church's up at Thruxton. So great progress there by Max Haynes, but let's check in back at the lead of the race. I think Szaruta's running away with this a bit.
Well, I looked at the gaps, and I was about to say we should switch them, because at one point a moment ago, the gap was around about 0.6 of a second, but in the space of around about 20 or 30 seconds, it's now gone up to about 1.2. So I'm not quite sure if Szaruta made a small mistake and that allowed Rowe to get back into play before Rowe made one of his own. But you see there, Rowe locking up a little bit. You can see he's pushing, but that's not going to help Szaruta either. Dipping a wheel onto the exit of the first part of Rocket, and that again will bring Rowe back. He's very sideways on the exit. Even he's just overheated his tyres, are not having a good run so far, and Rowe is straight on it. So good that we joined this battle as we did, because here comes David Rowe around the outside of Peel. They have the inside line now for the corkscrew here. It's going to be side by side with the lead between the two championship contenders, and Szaruta can't do anything about it. Rowe has got the inside and made the move stick. Now Szaruta will have to go to the outside to try and make the switchback work as he goes down the Tom Price straight, looks for the braking zone at the bank at the hairpin. Rowe moves across as much as he's entitled to. He gives Szaruta the room, but again, Szaruta looking for that switchback as Rowe parks the car straight on the late apex, and again they're wheel to wheel down towards the left-hander, down towards the final corner, towards the pit straight again, with just over 5 minutes to go, and Szaruta looking back down the outside, but Rowe is holding firm, and again looks for that switchback on the exit. So Rowe in front there, but not quite sure what was happening with Szaruta there. Either he was, dare I say, showboating, or simply just got too crossed up in that sequence of corners, out into the dirt, out of a rhythm, and what was a 1.2 second lead within a matter of moments was completely thrown away.
We do simulate the sort of the dusty line, and it can be as soon as you just get a little bit wider than he was, and he was definitely not on the grippy part of the track, was he, at that point? He'd already lost the rear once. As soon as he tried to go for that throttle, he just was a little bit too heavy on the right foot, and yeah, it spun it again. And David Rowe is off at Church, though. We talked about how you have got to be confident about keep your toe in. Perfect example of what happens if you actually have too much confidence and you run out of space.
So we're back to where we were at square one a lap ago. Like the previous lap, never even happened as Rowe gets back right underneath the roll cage of Szaruta. Remember, these are the top two in the championship, nose to tail for race victory here once again. If you look at how they've gone so far in terms of race wins this season, Christian Szaruta currently has 4 to his name, as does David Rowe. Arguably, if you're going to do it immediately on countback, if they even had the same amount of points, David Rowe has more second places. It's 2 second places compared to the 1 that Christian Szaruta has so far this year. So even if it was deadlocked on wins, at the moment, David Rowe even staying where he was, it'd be 3-1, but he's going to go for the victory. He wants win number 5 of the season, and they're going to go wheel to wheel again, down towards the hairpin, under brakes at the end of the Tom Price straight, and David Rowe tries to sweep around the outside, runs it deep, looks for the undercut on the exit, but again, Szaruta, as Rowe did a lap ago, parks the car neatly on the apex on the exit and forces Rowe to back out of it a little bit and switch his line. Now watch for the cars behind them, because they're going to take full advantage. Here's the perfect view for Paul Donkin, because again, as I've said so many times in battles like this, the harder these two fight each other, the easier it is for the cars behind to start gaining ground, because Paul Donkin's in there in 3rd, Chris Skinnercorn is 4th, and Richard Harwood's not too far away in 5th. So surely if these two keep at it, they must know in the back of their minds they might be possibly even so focused on each other, not bothered about 3rd, 4th and 5th, but they're going to have to win a second, Chris, because Paul Donkin is right there and could be the one that snatches the lead from both under both their noses if they're not careful, as they still go side by side down towards Rocket, the Church corner.
Yeah, this again, like you say, they're just so engrossed in their own battle. They kind of know at this point that they've got enough speed to pull ahead again, and David Rowe is now out in front once more as they head up again into Rocket. But yes, if they battle for too much longer, they will have this following pack, and as soon as they get involved, then who knows what's going to happen. Szaruta really late on the brakes there up into Rocket, but David Rowe's planted his car on the line, and maybe David Rowe's backing Szaruta up there a little bit. You could see he came off the throttle just towards the end of that corner, and that is a tactic. Again, we'll see Skiddertorn, I think, spinning to the inside like we've seen other people. Yeah, David Rowe is definitely backing Szaruta up into Donkin's path. Donkin now ready to take advantage of that. He's on the outside as we come down here through Siemens, but at the moment David Rowe is a little bit wider than he would want to be in there, side by side, 3 wide as they head up towards the hairpin.
I should mention that it's only Christian Szaruta and David Rowe won a race so far this season. Are we going to see at the third race when as we go almost 3 abreast? Szaruta looking for the outside line, but he has gone too deep into the hairpin. Here comes Donkin in the green Caterham, looking up the inside line for second. They're going to be side by side, but Szaruta gets the toe from his DPR teammate. Donkin slots in behind. They're going to go on to, I think, what might be the last lap of the race here, as they come down under brakes into the last corner of the bus stop left-hander. And now is the short pit straight to start another lap. It might move the last lap of the race. Could be touch and go.
It's ever so tight.
1 minute 40. Yeah. Richard Harwood, in fact, that's the fastest. Is the fastest. No, it's Blair Cresswell. They're all over the place here at the moment. Szaruta gets back up the inside. There's a bit of will-to-will contact between the two teammates. And again, Donkin will be watching here with bated breath. His opportunity has to be coming pretty soon here. David Rowe couldn't see where Christian Szaruta was because he's right to David Rowe's inside through the right-hander at Church as they still go wheel-to-wheel. Rowe just with his nose in front. Szaruta slots back behind, but he'll have the toe now down towards straight. It'll be a double toe for Paul Donkin as Chris Skillicorn watched on in 4th. You almost want to watch through your hands at this one, Chris, rather than watch it with your eyes open. This is immense on the final lap. Yeah,
David Rowe chose the inside there, but that's going to give Christian the run around the outside. Gets on the dirt, though, and Donkin is going to make an opportunistic move around the outside. Can he make that stick? He's just losing the rear end just where we see them all doing that as well. So, yes, Donkin making a great opportunistic move, but David Rowe currently making the best of that with Christian Szaruta still slotting into that second place.
Oh no, he's done it though, round the outside and through Peel. I thought he'd done it, but Christian Szaruta got better traction off the corner. But for a moment there, Paul Donkin looked like he was using the outside line to full effect and trying to get himself up into second place. They're down to the hairpin for what I think might be the last time. If they're quick enough, they might just sneak one more lap in, but there's 20 seconds left to go, so it's going to be very much touch and go as they come up towards the pit straight for the final time. It's 4 of them together now because Chris Skillicorn's in a tow. There's 10 seconds to go. It's going to be very tight, but it might well be checker flag this time by. If it is David Rowe, will break the deadlock of wins and go 5-4 at this point in time. As Szaruta takes one last dive up the inside, there's contact. Up the inside, it's going to be side by side to alignment. Checker flag will come out this time, and David Rowe just holds on. Christian Szaruta was very desperate on the last corner to try and get through, but David Rowe makes it 5-4 victory-wise, and it keeps up the DPR victory rate of 100%. Rowe holds on, only just from Szaruta in second place, and Paul Donkin, who looked at one point like he could have very much well won that race, will be very thrilled with third nonetheless, and with his pace number, so to speak, on that one. That will be something he'll definitely be quite optimistic on going into the second race. So Rowe, Szaruta and Donkin the top 3. Chris Skillicorn takes 4th. Harwood 5th, Cresswell 6th, then Davenport, McEwing, Larvin, Peters, Ennis. The one driver surprise is not in the top 10 and has hit strife again for the second time this race. Max Haynes down in 15th, so not the second half of the race he was hoping for after his spin at the beginning of the race up at the exit of Rocket. And he was as high as about 8th or 9th place at one point, but I don't know what happened. It was out of our sight of cameras whilst we watched the leaders, but he's not had a great start to his evening's racing himself. So, after a frantic battle at the front, which we expect to fully continue in the second race, David Rowe just beats Christian Szaruta, his main championship rival and teammate, by a fraction under 0.3 of a second to win the first race at Anglesey. Szaruta settled for second after leading for so long, about 2/3 through into the race. Paul Donkin takes a well-deserved third, but he was so close to a possible victory there, or even higher than P3. Chris Skillicorn 4th, after he had a little bit of dramas towards the end. Richard Harwood 5th, Blaine Cresswell 6th, and then Mark Davenport, Tom McEwing, Matt Larby and Jamie Peters-Ennis rounds out the top 10. It was a very close midfield pack. Craig Murphy, one of his first nights in Group A, gets an excellent result in 11th. Paul Fernerhoff, after his mistake down at the hairpin, puts him down to 12th. Stephen Henderson 13th, Matt Shepherd 14th, and Max Haynes, if he gets up towards a high position, it might be worth speaking to him because I don't know what happened in the second half of the race, but down in P15, a lot more work to do from towards the back of the grid. Then it's Anthony Hamilton, Nick Platts and Alan Curtis, who retired earlier on, who rounds out the 18 cars that were competing. 17 cars made the finish. I'm almost out of breath, Chris. We've still got one more race to go, and if it's anything like that one in race 2 that it was just there a moment ago, I'm going to need a very stiff drink at this end of this one, because that was battles galore towards the front, particularly when, for whatever reason, Szaruta lost his momentum and the gap that he had for so long, and as soon as David Rowe got straight into there, it was game on for the race lead.
Yeah, whatever it was that was causing that unsettledness, whether it was dirt on the tyres or whatever, it really kicked everything off, didn't it? And what a fantastic end to race 1 this evening for that grid. Little cheeky contact in that final corner, wasn't there, by Christian Szaruta? Just noticed him nudging David Rowe, but he was still able to hold on, and it really was tight over the line as to whether that was the final lap. But they did show the checkered flag, and a great end with Paul Donkin, really getting stuck in and involved. So good stuff by all the leading drivers there.
But of course, look at some of the other results as well. Chris Gillicorn 4th, good result for Richard Harwood in 5th. I guess the one driver we're quite disappointed by, given his strong qualifying pace and practice pace, is Max Haynes down in 15th. Again, we didn't see what happened in the second half of the race. If we speak to him post-race, he might go further still on that one. But we were tipping for someone to be the catalyst in that one. I guess you can only imagine that had he been up there with the likes of Rose, Szaruta and Donkin at the front, it could have been even more frantic, with 4 cars scrapping for the lead in the podium places rather than just a trio that we had out top in the end. Well,
they've got a flavour for it now, and we're coming up to race 2, so let's see what they can do as part of that. Just a quick mention that we've had Cam Aitken on the chat saying they've got a US Caterham Cup up and running now, which is great to hear that and maybe we'll see some of those guys come and join us on the virtual circuit as we just get back out onto the grid. But yeah, it's great to hear that the Caterhams are heading into the US.
Of course, it'll be a bit different if you had some of the US drivers across, because of course it'll either be somewhere between, I think right now, or roughly about either 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on where you are. So if there's any rather wealthy Caterham owners that also own a sim rig that fancy doing some racing on a Tuesday afternoon on the east or west coast, I'm sure we'll be happy to have you join in. There are some quite fine American sim races out there, so I'm sure that the best of the US when it comes to these Caterhams can come and join in with our fantastic Brits, or most of the drivers on the server usually are Brits as well. So it's roles reversal at the front of the grid then. It is David Rowe starting on pole on the inside, or driver's inside, in the black and white car with the green accents. Then it's the, what I always love to call the Brawn GP Special, which is the white and black car with the fluorescent yellow piping on the front nose of Christian Szaruta. Key factors here are going to be, of course, how good a start can Rowe get, how good a start Szaruta gets, which one gets to turn 1 first and can build a gap, if the other one can stay with them. And I guess the curious case also of Paul Donkin, can he also get a good start and keep with them? Because if he can, it might well change the catalyst of this, the characteristics of this race, particularly in the first half, if we make it a 3-way scrap, unless he decides to rely on those 2 fighting again, which then brings him back into play, having sat back and preserved some of the heat in his tyres for quite a while. And of course we have to watch out for Max Haynes from the back, 15th, but I think if he can keep his nose out of trouble, and that's a big if, he won't stay there for long.
I think Donkin won't mind me saying, I think he does need them to battle up front for them to be involved in there, and I think they'll be keen to battle from the start, so I reckon this will be a 4 or 5-way fight this time.
Let's hope so. Lights are going to come up then for race number 2 of the evening. Is it going to be a second win of the night for David Rowe to make it 6th of the season, or will Szaruta make it 5-all by the time they leave Wales tonight? Let's find out. It's a clean start. One of the 2 cars stumbling away. I think it might be Craig Murray had some problems there. He's off on the grass already as they come up towards turn 1 for the first time, and Rowe does indeed get the whole shot. He leads exiting the turn 1 up towards the banking, but he is under attack from Szaruta, who tries to go the outside line. They all pile in, a couple of lock-ups towards the midfield, some of the blue cars in there, but Szaruta does the dummy already up the inside. He's got the left, he's got the momentum and the track position over David Rowe into Church. Here we go again. We've only just started lap 1 of race 2, and they're at it already. And look at Chris Gillicorn with a fast start. Is he going to be a dark horse in this one? They're going to be side by side up towards School. It is going to be 3 abreast to the right towards Rocket. Here comes Chris Gillicorn. These 2 again so busy battling amongst each other, they're not oblivious to the cars around them. Gillicorn to the outside, 3 abreast on lap 1 up towards Rocket. They're all going to run wide. Look at Paul Donkin up the inside. 3 for the price of 1. That's extraordinary. They were so busy looking at each other all the time that Rowe and Szaruta once again trip up over each other. They're slipping down the bottom of the top 5. Paul Donkin leads this race on halfway around through lap 1. Skinnercore in second place. Glenn Cresswell's up to 3rd. And the top 2 from the front row of the grid. are so busy with each other, they're dropping backwards. It's how bizarre, but how incredible at the same time.
All three of those front leaders, so Rowe, Skilletorn and Szaruta, all outbroke themselves up into Rocket, and it drifted wide. That let Donkin have a nice clear run up the inside, and he just said, thank you very much, off I go. Went through that hole, and still not settled down here, so David Rowe having to fight back through. He's back past Harwood, just following on now behind Christian Szaruta, but they are now deep in the battles, and they not going to have it all their own way this time through, with Blaine Cresswell also having a fantastic start there in that third place. Really solid race through from last time out, even though we didn't see him much on camera. He did put a great result up there, and he's another one that's came through as the seas parted in front of him.
So the question is now going to be, is how difficult can or will Blaine Cresswell, Christian Szaruta and Paul Donkin make it to the top two of the championship to get back through into podium positions? The first target for Szaruta and Rowe is going to be the Blaine Cresswell cars. We see further back more battles going on. That looks like that's Max Haynes being a little wide there by Craig Murphy under brakes, and there goes Jamie Peters-Ennis up the inside to make a good move. Good start for Max Haynes though, from 15th on the grid already up to 10th. He's keeping Peters-Ennis at bay as they come up through the right-hander at Church for the first time, so already into the top 10 for Max and trying to make some early progress. I think he would have been helped a little bit by the stack up on the first lap, which were Constantine to pack up a little bit. Shepherd now looking for a move here, trying to get past Stephen Henderson, one of our newcomers to Grid A tonight. And a little bit further back, that's Matt Larby, who is another one who has been racing in this year's Caterham Academy and been quite potent towards the front. So I think if I'm right in saying, Chris, Larby and McEwing are part of the same academy group, so they're very familiar with each other. I think the difference here, though, is that McEwing has got a bit more experience in the virtual world and therefore seems to be considerably quicker at this point than his real world Caterham Academy Championship rival. I
think Matt Larby just got caught out in some of those incidents because he and McEwing are rarely apart on circuit, a bit like the old Tom Willis and Blair McConaughey battles. Out on the academy for real, they are absolutely nose to tail, and on the simulator as well, they do definitely like getting involved and racing each other out there. But Matt Arby having a poor start to this race, but he's made his way back past Anthony Hambleton, as you can see in the background, as we're looking back at this front and how much the progress can these front drivers make. Szaruta has got Cresswell under pressure now, and Cresswell's rear end is dancing as they come across that far finish straight, and he has got the power down and will make it up the inside there of turn one.
He's trying to fight back on the outside line, is Cresswell. He might have the inside for the next corner here. He's not done with this one. Back up the inside he goes, but he realised at the last minute that Szaruta was always to be later on the brakes. But again, he thought it's fortunate to go wide. And once again, Cresswell gets him back on the exit. So it's now back to the drawing board for Szaruta, but it might not take him long to formulate a new plan here. This will play perfectly into the hands of David Rowe trying to close in. He was 1.2 seconds back a few moments ago. He's gained about 4/10 during this sequence. Szaruta gets the slingshot up through School Curve, and he should easily get himself to the braking zone before Rocket Complex, which he does. Cresswell will fight back as much as he can. It's a brave effort, but I think at this point in time the move is done and dusted, and it'll be up now target Skillecorn for Szaruta to try and take second place. Rowe's the next man to come up behind Cresswell, and Rowe himself has now got he's got about 8/10 of a second to try and make up on Szaruta, who can now start to escape now that he's been released from the clutches of Blaine Cresswell. But of course now the next thing for Szaruta to try and tackle is to get past Tom Skillecorn, and if he gets held up as much as he was there with Cresswell, and if Rowe can dispatch of Blaine pretty quickly here, there's every chance once again that Rowe, like he did in race 1, can exploit any mistake that Szaruta makes, get straight back in there and finish back ahead of him by the end of the race.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to be watching out for, those times. It's not as straightforward to get past here at Anglesey. We've seen a couple of times it's taking multiple corners to get the job done. It's hard to get that power down, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's a struggle for these drivers to get past. He was watching Max Haynes making his way back up, diving down in the bus stop, last corner of the lap, heading towards that start-finish straight. Paul Funnyhuff just giving him that position and knowing that that's maybe not his battle today, but Max making good progress here, up into 8th place already.
Just keep an eye on the gap. David Rowe's very close to the back of Blaine Cresswell's car, but it's a good drive so far from Max into P8 in the space of a couple of laps. That's working out well for him so far. Szaruta has already caught the back of Chris Skillecorn, and this is what's really hindering David Rowe here. Race 1 winner just needs to try and find a way around Blaine Cresswell. He needs a mistake from him, or trying to find some bit more pace. He's within the half-second range of the toe. Is he going to make a dive here up towards Rocky? He's quite close. He's possibly within range to make a last-minute dive. Is he going to go for it? Well, he thinks about it. It was a bit of a half-hearted go, but he decides last minute to go diving up the inside. And almost as Cresswell said, well, after you, David, I'm not quite in the championship fight here, so I'll let you through and try and get you back next if I can. That big twitch of oversteer is not going to help. What won't help Rowe either is the fact that Szaruta has dispatched of Chris Skillecorn already. So the next target is going to be to try and depose Paul Donkin from the lead, because he's done quite well so far as we approach half distance already. Remember, these are only 15-minute races, so you've got a very limited time, whereas the Caterham races in the real life will have at least a 20-minute race in most part, particularly the 2:17 3:10 Rs in particular, will run over a complete half an hour distance. So this is half the distance that you expect these cars in real life to race, but certainly they prove to be quite good, as it is the inverted commas, sprint cars rather than slightly longer half an hour races. And Szaruta trying to make full effect here, as he's already just about on a second or so behind Paul Donkin. But we know how good Donkin's pace is without too much pressure, so let's see if Zaruta's got enough here over a couple of laps to close back in and get within that margin. Speaking of how much has he got enough, look at the lap time comparison. 1:39.4 for Donkin, a 38.8 for Christian Szaruta. Absolutely flying out there at the moment. And I'm sure, unless Donkin puts up a massive resilient battle for defence from a lead, which I anticipate him to do, being the fact that he's out in front, surely, Chris, all due respect to Paul, it's a matter of when rather than if Christian gets past.
Yeah, and that's an interesting fight then for the championship. If Christian can get past and David Rowe stumbles with Chris Skillicorn, that will be pretty good championship points there for Christian, as he potentially gets this lead. But let's not give him that lead until he's actually had to take it. Paul Donkin is a wily racer with plenty of experience in Caterhams and other forms of motorsport, so he will not make it easy to pass. Max Haynes, I can see in the background, fighting with Tom McEwing as well, so battles all the way through. It looks like Max Haynes has made it past Tom McEwing, so next up on his list is Richard Harwood. And a little bit further back, I was seeing Matt Larby making some progress, but it looks like him and Anthony Hamilton are having an absolutely epic fight up here towards Rocket, and side by side, and a little bit tripping over each other there, but nevertheless, great battles going on all the way up and down the field.
Platt's looking quite bemused there in 17th and last place watching on. He's going to get involved in that one too, I imagine. Right, battle between the top two there. We're underneath half a second, so Szaruta will have a tow down this straight towards the bus stop. And still David Rowe in fourth place there. Hasn't really caught Chris Skillicorn here. He's got decent pace, but not really closing in quick enough. And so what he also needs here is if Szaruta can try and be sort of held at bay for a few more corners, maybe a lap or two more by Paul Donkin, and that might just frustrate him a bit into a mistake. Again, Szaruta into the high 38s. He can rapidly comfortably quicker than anyone else by at least half a second. So this point in time, as we come towards 6.5 minutes to go in this race, again, Szaruta getting very close right under the roll cage of Donkin. All he can do is put the car into a solid enough place to prevent Szaruta from trying to find a way through. This is the viewpoint we have from Szaruta. He has a look, just has a peek as he goes through Rocket Church Corner. Now towards Rocket, he's in that slipstream. Surely happy this time by, gets a better run, pulls himself alongside. And as he goes up through the gears, Donkin will try and defend it. He will very well go down the outside line if he can. But he is side by side for the lead. Will Donkin try and fight it around the outside? He'll try. But Szaruta might send him right to the edge of the circuit, which he tries and does. He just chops off the nose of Donkin. And what he looks like he might have had an opportunity to try and switch back. It's not going to work on that side. And so I fear for everyone else, potentially, Chris, it's a case of Szaruta in front now. Good night, everyone. Goodbye. I'm gone. That's the lead for me until the end of the checkered flag.
It was a very, very well judged overtake, that wasn't it? He just had the millimetres he needed to get his car back to the outside of the track. Had Donkin been able to be a little bit later on the brakes, but I don't think there was much left there. As we see, Szaruta actually quite wide out there. But this is the championship battle. David Rowe is not making an impact into Chris Skillicorn's lead in front of him, which we might expect. So whether David's got some issues in that car, we do run minimal damage, but we do have some damage simulation to keep everyone honest. And the battle behind them looks great between Harwood, Max Haynes and Tom McEwing as they come down here. It's Harwood, Cresswell and Blaine, isn't it? So Blaine's still out there in that fifth place at the moment, but it's really tight. He's gone off wide there, and it's going to allow the other two to get through. But race-long battles all the way up and down the field.
Aggressive stuff. That's two cars for the price of one, although you can see that Cresswell trying to get back around the outside to reclaim the position. I was glad you mentioned that battle, because I was just about to point it out myself and just see if we could take a look at those three cars scrapping over best of the rest in P5. And Haynes, impressive comeback so far. He's gone from 15th to 5th. That's 10 places made up. And they're still squabbling over 6th position. Cresswell and Harwood going at it. Harwood on the outside line. The white car gets almost shuffled onto the grass on the exit, but he keeps his foot in. That's impressive stuff. If you can do that and keep the momentum, there's every chance you can complete the move. Slots in behind Cresswell, tries to get a small tow. He'll come back up possibly the inside line in towards Rocket. Again, as I think about it, and just like a couple of laps ago, I think we had with David Rowe trying to get past Cresswell, was ever so slightly late in making that decision to make a move. Whether it's that Glenn Cresswell opens up the door on the last minute into the corner, or simply he's just not quick enough to turn in and get himself back on the power again. He's in front for now, but Cresswell looks as though he's under increasingly bigger pressure from Richard Harwood. I'm sure certainly, unless he keeps on making mistakes like sliding sideways like that out of corners, that Cresswell might well come under big threat again in the next few moments. He might lose at least another position or two, because Tom McEwing's not too far away in 8th place either.
Yeah, but hold your hats. They've actually been line astern rather than side by side for 2 corners now. A little bit of a nudge there, just as he was late on the brakes. That's Richard Harwood just tapping the very end of Cresswell's car there. But yeah, it's looking like that's settled in a little bit. Meanwhile, Donkin is receiving attention of Chris Skillicorn, is getting closer, and David Rowe has now started to, with a 38.6, started to close that gap. So I don't know whether he just fell asleep for a couple of laps, but he is right back up to there, and he's got a couple of cars in his way with only 3 minutes left. I don't think he's going to be able to get it to that second place.
It's not just woken up, it's the new fastest lap of the race with a 138.6, as you said, to start to wake up. But I have to agree that if David Rowe was going to wake up, you need to do it about maybe 3 or 4 minutes, maybe even sooner than that, because he's been sat back for so long. And again, the best he could probably hope for is second place, provided these two in front fight so much that it's going to be an easy pickings for him if they run into each other. Through the Rocket Complex they go once again, just under 2.5 minutes, just over 2.5 minutes now on the clock as they come out of Rocket Complex, and see David Rowe just edging himself closer as they come up through Hill Corner right at the top of this complex. And now they start to make the run down the hill where they go to the corkscrew corner, where they would, if it was the shorter coastal circuit, go right and then flick left through a steeper dip, much like the corkscrew at Laguna Seca in the US. Instead they turn left all the way off onto the Tom Price Straight, named after the late and very decently talented Welsh Formula 1 driver who could have gone quite far in the sport. And then out of the hairpin, over the curb, back up through the gears again, and this is now getting to a point where David Rowe certainly running out of options here. I think he's going to get 2 more laps, because Christian Szaruta will come across the line now, doing 138.1. Goodness me, 138.1, where's that been hiding into Saruta's locker? It's half a second quicker than the fastest lap that Rowe just put in last time by, so I think that's to prove a point to everyone else, is that he's not quite done yet this weekend. Even though he got beaten in race 1, that's what he can do when he's allowed to get out in front, basically drive at his own pace and just put his foot down and pull away from everyone else. A 38.1, substantially faster than his teammate David Rowe, and I'm sure that's a bit of a marker to show, look, out of the 2 of us at DPR, when it comes to ultimate pace, I'm the one that's got it. You need to try and catch up a little bit more, team boss or not.
Yeah, I think that's nearly the fastest lap. I think I've seen a 38.0 by Christian a little bit earlier this evening. David Rowe, though, side by side and slightly ahead of Chris Skillicorn, coming into the braking zone, was able to manoeuvre his car out to the right. Fully locked up, though, but does manage to get it all stopped. It was a little bit desperate, wasn't it? But I was going to say that even if the race ends now, David Rowe still comes out sort of slightly behind over the course of this race weekend. He's improved that by 1 single position, but he obviously took the opening round, which was looking good. But if he doesn't get up to second, he is going to lose out here to Christian just a touch as we head towards the latter end of this season.
Yeah, he does need to try and get himself ahead of Donkin if he can, to maintain whatever advantage he had at the top of the points, because of course if it's going to be a first and second each for these two, it pretty much does nothing to change the gap at the front of the field, particularly I think on drop scores. So these two will stay pretty much as they were, and they will change at the top. It'll be the cars behind that will start to gain points, particularly I'm certain on overall points, Paul Donkin, who will start to pull away a bit more comfortably in that 3rd spot. You see Christian Szaruta turn his way into the bus stop for the final time. And it might
he was trying to run the clock down, and he didn't manage to do it. It was almost 100 IQ that was. He was trying to run the clock down, knowing that David didn't want to give him an extra lap to try and get past Donkin, but he didn't quite manage to do that, and therefore he have got another lap, and he's lost some of his lead because of it.
I think Rowe's also lost a little bit of time to Donkin as well. He was less than a second there, but he's dropped back a few tenths in the last couple of corners, so whether or not he was anticipating another lap to go, I'm not sure if that was the case either, but if it was, then Rowe possibly started to lift off a little bit when he didn't need to. As they come onto the back straight through School Curve and up towards the Rocket Complex for the final time, it is Christian Szaruta, who, we had a similar scenario, I think, in one of the, I think it was one of the races at Snetterton, where it was the Fun Cup race, where after 4 hours, just about 4 hours worth of racing, the leader had to go and do one more lap, because quite literally half a tenth of a second he went across the line before the 4 hours completed. So that's how close you want it in terms of trying to complete the lap right to a T. So Christian Szaruta has got to do this final lap in order to get the job done and to make it 5-all when it comes to victories. And David Rowe, despite this extra lap, is not really making the most of it. He's still got Skithercorn in hunting range just behind him. Paul Donkin holding on for second. It's been a mega even Paul having getting himself 2 podium finishes, a third and now a second, if he can hold on here after the last couple of corners. That's for Christian Szaruta. Well, this is just Christian doing Christian things as he comes out towards bus stop for the final time. And yet again, as we've seen so many times in this championship and in this community, once he gets out in front, you simply cannot stop him for the most part. Out the final corner, up to the checkered flag. It is 5-all for victories. It's a winner piece tonight for David Rowe and Christian Szaruta. Christian takes race 2 here at Anglesey from Paul Donkin in second place. David Rowe did get, I don't know if he was third anyway, but I thought he got past Skithercorn there, but David Rowe did get third from Chris Skithercorn in fourth. And Max Haynes, hats off to him. There was one of the drivers of the evening. That's certainly one of them. For 15th on the grid after his mishap at Rocket on the first start, to 5th position in the end of the top 5 spot, and a very strong haul of points for him. That'll certainly help him in the championship if he wants to make up a couple more places up the table from those who haven't finished every round. Richard Harwood 6th, then Blaine Cresswell 7th, and it's McEwing, Fernerhuff and Jeremy Peters-Ennis rounding out the top 10. And a night in which the championship contenders pretty much made sure that nothing really changed at the head of the pack. It was pretty much a winner of second place either way, and that certainly means that nothing should change too dramatically when it comes to the standings. We'll see them a little bit later on, of course, as we head towards our next rounds. But there's the result then. Christian Szaruta victorious by 2.5 seconds this time from Paul Donkin in an excellent second place after he capitalised the early battles. David Rowe is third, but I'm sure he wants to get himself into a second place. But sorry, it's a second and a third, so that will certainly be advantage Szaruta by at least a point or two to get him back on overall, on at least drop scores, if not overall. Chris Skithercorn fourth, kept himself in the lead group. He did well to hold himself a top 5 place. And Max Haynes, one of the drivers of the evening, 15th after finishing there in race 1, up to 5th in race 2, making up 10 positions. Very strong effort from Max. Well done to him. Richard Hayward finishes 6th, ahead of Blaine Cresswell in 7th place. And Tom McEwing, Paul Peters in the top 10. Then 11th place on the order goes to Craig Murphy from Stephen Henderson. Matt Larby making his way up to 13th after a bit of a rough part of that race towards the back. Alan Curtis does make the finish this time in 14th place after he retired in race 1. And then one or two of our new drivers, Nick Platts and Anthony Hambleton from Matt Shepherd, who struggled, and also Mark Davenport, who we sadly lost either at the start or before the end of lap number 1. So that is racing completed. Of course, we've still got a few chats to have as well, but I think in terms of the championship hunt, Chris, that's another interesting twist, interesting development, and another chapter written for the story of this season 8 title run between Christian Szaruta and David Rowe. Arguably, in terms of points, only just its advantage Szaruta because it was a first and a second compared to a first and a third. But I like to think both on drop scores and even overall scores, it might well just be Rowe still leading. But if the gap has come down, it's come down by a point or so. But then only being 8 points apart before drop scores, that's not all that much. It makes things even tighter going towards the last couple of meetings, particularly Knock Hill and then the season finale at Spa. So this should be a pretty tense last couple of rounds to decide who wins this title.
Yeah, I think we've probably got the exciting prospect of all evens going into round 6 or the 6th event, the 11th and 12th rounds of this season. So between them, and close as you like, nothing between them. And it was just a bit of a hiccup early on in that second race, which cost them that first and second. But it was always looking likely, wasn't it? And Donkin and Skithercorn, they're absolutely injecting themselves into that battle as soon as those two did start to go in. And Donkin holding on really well for that second place again. So another strong set of results for Paul Donkin as he really does start getting settled into this championship, and maybe in season 9 he'll be someone who can be there right from the beginning, fighting Szaruta and Rowe as well, and maybe seeing a return of some other drivers who will be back on the simulator as once the real racing gets closed down for the season. But yes, really good stuff this evening. And I think if because we haven't spoken to Max on this, I'm not sure if you've spoken to him on the stream at all, but let's see whether he's got a mic open. And so yeah, Max, have you got us in the commentary box?
Hello.
Hey Max, we just thought we'd drag you in because you've had kind of an eventful evening. You know, you qualified so well, dropped back with that kind of early issue, and then fought back through. We didn't see what then you dropped back again in race 1, back to 15th. We weren't sure what happened towards the end of that run.
I was just some bad driving by me all round in race one. I got a bit excited on the first lap and thought I could just plant the throttle down without any softly, nicely, and spun it round. And then coming back through the pack, I had a bit of a tangle with one of the other drivers. But all in all, some great clean racing otherwise.
And then in race 2, from 15th all the way up to that's 10 places gained up to 5th place. What a race that must have been from your perspective.
Yeah, it was very fun. Credit to all the others. It was some great racing all the way down the pack. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Like I say, I think you had the pace tonight, and maybe next time we can hold on and maybe don't. Especially with this 310, that rear end is just loose as you like, isn't it?
Yeah. That's how I like it. And yeah, I'm determined to knock those two off the top at least one race. So
it's definitely going to happen, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, mate.
There you go. Yeah, just reiterating how tricky this car can be. Let's go through our podium drivers then. Let's start with Paul Donkin, see whether he is available. Hey, Paul, have you got us in the commentary box?
I have indeed. How are you doing, Cheesy?
Yeah, good. And another good set of results for you. I think in race 1 we can say that the battling definitely helped you catch up, but in race 2 absolutely inserted and really held on well.
Yeah, race 1. I mean, I'm acutely aware of those two boys fighting for a championship. I think I'm doing all right in P3 or something, but still conscious not to get too involved in that, to be honest with you. But race 2, not really sure what happened into that top hairpin. I don't know what it's called. I'm not too familiar with the circuit, but kind of took my chance, led for a bit, but then I saw Christian coming and kind of knew he was going to close the gap. But yeah, I think P2 we finished. Still happy with that. Yeah,
definitely. The Jaws music was definitely playing, and I looked like David Rowe in the first race might have been using you as a bit of interference there, backing everybody up into you. So I think whether you want to be involved or not, I think they're going to force you to do that.
Yeah, you never know what games is going on, but again, I really enjoyed it. It was good to follow the guys at the front because I'm a little bit off the pace still, so even just following for 2 or 3 laps, you learn quite a lot and you can find some time basically for free.
Well, when the tears start flowing in Knockhill, maybe you can pick up the pieces from them both there.
Certainly, yeah. I look forward to seeing you at the next one. All right.
Yeah, see you next time. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers. Bye.
Alrighty, let's get our race 1 winner in here. David Rowe, have you got us in the commentary box?
Certainly do.
All right. Very good race 1, and then a little bit interfered with in race 2 and weren't able to get the hammer down and come back through the field.
Yeah, there was a coming together between me and Christian. I might have to submit a review, to be honest. Very unsporting. And then after that, the car just didn't feel quite as good as what it did. And yeah, had a couple of big tank slappers and couldn't quite make any progress forward.
He also tickled you in the last corner, didn't he, on that race 1 there, just making sure you were paying attention as you came across the line.
That's right. Yeah, no, he did. He's a wily old fox, isn't he? But I'm not exactly sure where that puts us. Equal points, or maybe he's one ahead?
I think maybe equal points now. We'll obviously put all the results up later on caterhamracer.com so we can all see. I did see you backing up. It looked like you're backing Christian into Paul Donkin in race 1 as well. I don't know whether that was deliberate or whether you're going to admit to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Paul could really help me out because I was missing about a good half second of pace between Christian, so that's the only games I could play.
Yeah, good job anyway. And we'll see you at Anglesey in real life, but and good luck there. But we'll see you at Knockhill next time on the sim.
Lovely. See you then.
Alrighty. Let's get our race 2 winner in here then. Christian, have you got us in the commentary box? Oh, you're breaking up a bit there, Christian. Say that again.
Indeed.
There you are. Indeed. Race 2, certainly, a fight back for the ages there. Race 1 couldn't do much about David, and he sort of prevented the onslaught. But good set of results, and I think you've come out on top overall.
Indeed, actually, I told David I was just being charitable in race 1, but I did actually have a steering wheel disconnection, which is what caused me to lose the substantial gap.
We wondered what had happened on stream. We saw the rear end step out a couple of times in a row. I'm guessing it was technical issues that causing that.
Yeah, I had to. My steering wheel basically lost connectivity, so I couldn't change gear or anything. I was just like stuck. Okay. So I was like faffing around with it, trying to get it working again.
Well, that's
Fortunately, I managed
suboptimal.
to.
But
Yeah.
So second place then is actually quite a nice recovery, really, from that, and then in race 2, just got the hammer down after what was an early. I think it was up into Rocket, wasn't it? You all decided you were all going to outbrake each other.
Well, I think David just, did the usual thing and drove me off the road as per normal. But it backfired for him, didn't it? So
it did.
All the better for it.
Yeah, well, another good set of results, I'd say, for both of you. But I think you did come out slightly on top in that battle, so good job.
Yeah, just by the point, I think, I believe.
Good stuff. All right, well, we'll see you at Knock Hill.
Thanks very much.
See you then.
Bye.
Okay, yes. Good set of results. Again, good set of racing. We've been entertained, and that's what we ask, isn't it? That's more than enough for us.
Couldn't ask for more when it comes to one of these caterhamracer.com races. I agree, and well done to all of our top 3 finishers who scored some very strong results tonight, particularly those who, of course, are battling for the championship. Always constant banter between those two back and forth. They might be teammates, but they're also on-track rivals. They are obviously mates as well, of course, and sort of team boss and team driver. I will be intrigued to see one day, if it ever happens, seeing those two in 2 race bet Caterhams battling amongst each other again, because I imagine that those two might well be quite interesting, particularly if you put them in amongst some of the established drivers racing this season or within the next couple of years coming through the ranks. So that really concludes, once again, another evening of racing for caterhamracer.com. Season 8 motors on towards its conclusion. As you can see, the next one is one of 2 very big, well, I say figuratively in terms of how sort of substantial they're going to be for this championship, but also significant the circuits are in terms of their unique challenge they provide. And that's Knock Hill in the Caterham 420Rs. So the most powerful Caterhams that we have access to in the sim are going to be rattling around the little 1.3 mile sort of roller coaster of a circuit that's up in Fife in Scotland. And then, of course, we get to our season finale, where we take the cars virtually across the channel to Belgium and to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, where the drivers, dangerous as it sounds, get their choice of car. Will they go for the Academy car, the 310 or the 420R, whatever they choose? It's certain to be another excellent pair of races, which may well decide the title if it's not decided already. I don't think it will be next time out at Knock Hill. But then again, this is caterhamracer.com, as we've seen so many times, as in real-life motorsport. Anything can happen. And speaking of real-life motorsport, Chris, of course, you'll be back on the microphone again next weekend, where we've got more live action coming up. Tell us more about that as Caterham heads to the Welsh coast for real in over about sort of roughly 10 days or so worth time.
Yep, so we're not this coming weekend, but the weekend following, we will be up at Anglesey, the 13th and 14th of August for our Real World Round 5, and all the steps of the Caterham Motorsport ladder will be there, and there's Fun Cup racing going on, endurance stuff as well going on over that race weekend, so we're really looking forward to making that long journey up to Anglesey. And if you're in that area of the country, if you're up sort of North Manchester area, then it's a quick trip across Wales and into Anglesey. It's definitely worth your while. And then we've got the actual British Motor Show, where we're also Caterham there presenting lots of their cars and vehicles, and we're getting fully involved in their supercar performance. We've got a motorsport arena and their drift taxi. So if you want to see what these things are like for real, then why not come across to the British Motor Show? And yeah, not long before we head up to Knock Hills either, like as you say. So really exciting times at the moment, and we are looking forward to plenty more action. But we'll see you at Anglesey, if not before.
And of course, the Knock Hill rounds are going to be what they call Knock Hill Super Header, because that's going to be where we will see both directions utilised in the same weekend. So one race weekend will be one day's worth of racing will be on the regular clockwise direction, and then the next day they'll do it all again, but this time on the reverse direction. And we have had Caterham's race on that layout before, and rather than sort of climbing up the hill through the chicane midway through the lap, they start launching themselves off it like they're off the top of the Grand Canyon. But someone can catch quite a bit of air across those jumps, so certainly one to watch out for, maybe both on stream and trackside as well, if you can make it if you're in that area. That concludes again our action tonight for caterhamracer.com Series 8. Thanks to those watching either live or watching back on the stream. And again, of course, a big thank you to all our partners and sponsors, because as we sign off from a virtual Anglesey in North Wales, we remind you again that the caterhamracer.com Season 8 Championship is sponsored by Just Add Lightness, first for Caterham LED lights and in-car communication, by Design Display Structures. Immerse yourselves in worlds beyond with bespoke projection screens with, if my browser wants to catch up with DPR Motorsport, your competitive advantage, one-to-one on-track coaching and simulation training with Ryan Hooker, and also with support sponsorship from Darren Burt, Performance Driver Coach, and FP0 Simulators. For myself, Scott Woodward, and Chris Hutchison, and all of us here at caterhamracer.com, enjoy the real racing for real life next weekend, and join us for more as we head to our penultimate meeting of the season in the 420 yards to around about the beginning of September, when we head towards the virtual Knock Hill in Scotland. But until then, take care, and we'll see you for more action very, very soon in a few weeks' time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.